Fatalis. He is all-powerful.
Oh, I am.
He is unstoppable.
Oh, I am.
And he is the end.
I am.
He is also impossible. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Here and welcome. Who says here and welcome? Oh, hark, hello, here and Anyway, welcome, just welcome to today, where I want to express to you just how insanely, ridiculously, unbelievably powerful Fatalis is. To the point where, yes, he is impossible. I know you might be thinking, buddy, this is Monster Hunter, crazy creatures doing crazy things. I know a lot of what they do is quite, well, impressively based on nature, and with just a little bit of creative license, a lot of the monsters are quite believable. There's clear research and implementation of actual animals and how they behave, and it's honestly really nice attention to detail. But look, this is Fatalis, Black Dragon, Big Boss. He can do what he wants. And yeah, he can do what he wants. But I really just need to convey how utterly ridiculous what Fatalis can do is. Convey just how impressive it is, and convey just how terrifying it is. And look, I'm not about to go all full lore on you. I'm not about to tell you stories of Fatalis. I'm not about to recount the legends, give you harrowing tales of the atrocities that he has committed. They are all obviously true. He melts hunters onto his own hide, both to enhance it and as a mockery of what we do to monsters in armor, and you see that represented in his pin. He obviously has destroyed the kingdom of Shrade, wasted its armies by himself. He is, well, canonically the strongest monster, named so by the creators of the series, the Black Dragon. You know, he is the pinnacle. And when you see something like... to have this realization of, yep, I kind of get why he is such a big deal. But it's actually his big burns that he does throughout the fight, his ocean of flame that he unleashes throughout the fight, that I want to focus on today. Because this, translated to real life, is bonkers nuts crazy. And the reason it is that is because of the first two times. The first two times he burns, you have to hide. Otherwise, you get absolutely incinerated. And where do you hide? Behind this bent, scrap, ruined piece of metal, and then behind a big old door, again made out of metal. And what happens both times after a few seconds of being, well, blanketed in Fatalis' flame? They liquefy, turn molten, melt, drip down, and are utterly obliterated. And this is a, well, intense part of the fight, especially your first time. It's one of the coolest moments in all of Monster Hunter. Fatalis Iceborne is one of the peak moments of all of Monster Hunter. It's a fantastic fight and a fantastic crescendo to a masterpiece of a 5th generation. And as you're there, cowering behind these flimsy safe houses, waiting for this apocalypse to at least momentarily pause, you really do get this feeling of, oh, this is the ultimate challenge, the ultimate hunt. We are fighting history, the end, the arbiter, the bane of man, and it's, you know, it's awesome. But again, the literalness of what is happening, I want to actually delve into because it's impossible and it's ridiculous. And while this will likely turn out to be a silly video that I have put way too many hours of research in, it's one that I think will be a lot of fun and one that I really want to put across. So without further ado then, let me get to the point. So, the metal that you are hiding behind, within about, 5 to 10 seconds, turns completely molten, drips onto the floor, and is melted. This we're going to examine. This is ancient civilization construction, is ancient civilization tech. They had the most advanced of all of technology in the Monster Hunter world. We currently are nowhere near the level they were at. So, trying to decide what kind of metal this is a little bit difficult, but needless to say, the ancient civilization had way more advanced forging processes. I mean, they're the ones that invented the charge blade and the switch axe. They're the reason we have them. So, you know, going out on a limb and saying, alright, it's probably akin to steel, if not literally steel. We know we have iron and coal and the materials and methods to produce steel in the Monster Hunter world, using it as a solid choice for construction like this. Yeah, okay, let's assign it as steel. That's nothing too crazy, it's nothing too flimsy, it feels right for a big old metal door designed to keep, well, enemies out. Steel then has a melting point of about 1500 degrees or so. And yes, I will be using degrees for the many different temperatures I will be telling you in this video. So if you want Fahrenheit, I guess get a converter open, or just imagine what I said, but like 80% higher. In any case, that is very hot. And I suppose for this first one, about 2800 degrees Fahrenheit. But it is very hot, and obviously it's not the easiest thing to melt steel. Now, I can understand if your initial take here is, wow, you've really made a whole video and took like 5 minutes to get to the point of telling us that Fatalis' flame is like 1500 degrees hot and therefore can melt steel. I mean, yeah, that's impressive, woo, powerful, alright, cool. Well, not quite, because it's not as easy as that. It's not as easy as that on multiple layers. So, look, yes, melting a tiny piece of metal in a controlled furnace or forge over a long period of time is quite, well, doable. You can build your own at home and, well, melt your own metal at home. Man as a species started working with metal like 5,000 years BC. But there are 3 factors here that make this, as I keep saying, impossible, insane, and ridiculous. The first factor is the speed at which it melts. If you fire the lever a few seconds before the big wave of fire hits, the whole door will melt down in like 5 seconds. That is, I mean, to illustrate what this implies for the temperature that is being outputted by Fatalis here, go and put an ice cube in a pan of boiling water. Bear in mind that the melting point of an ice cube is anything above 0 degrees, and that boiling water is 100 degrees, so you're overkilling it by 100 degrees. But what happens? It doesn't just instantly gone, there we go, like you might expect it to. It still takes a while for the ice cube to fully melt into the water back as water. And that is with that much overkill, as it were. So imagine how much hotter than the actual already ridiculously 1500 degree melting point of steel you need to be to melt this much of it that quickly, in seconds. And the other key word there was that much. That is a lot. That is a huge amount being, well, glooped, for want of a better. I mean, molten melt's kind of gloopy, right? I think gloop is the better. Come on now. And that is no small feat. The larger amount of material you have, the inordinate amount more energy you need to put into it to melt it all at once. And indeed, all at once is what's happening here. And the final point is the environment that it's being done in. It's not the perfect environment for forging, for melting, for turning iron, for steel into a malleable liquid form. It's just open air in the middle of a ruined castle. And melting stuff in open air on a normal fire, air quotes, is incredibly inefficient. A normal wood fire burns at like 1,100 degrees Celsius. And if you put just a bit of metal in that fire, even pretending the melting point was 1,000 degrees Celsius, it wouldn't actually melt because of just how much heat is being lost by it being open air, by it being so exposed. It's really not a good way to do things. So you have to, again, really overkill the temperature to overwhelm the loss of it being just an open air, flamey, melty experience. So, those 3 factors combined, you should now be like going, okay, So what I'm getting is there is 3 huge deals here that imply that Fatalis' flame, in order to do what it's doing, needs to be an order of magnitude hotter than the melting point minimum required to melt steel. And yes, you are correct. But the thing is, what that number is, what that temperature ends up being, is incredibly hard to say. The only certainty is that it is silly numbers. Yeah, that's right, I'm going full all out here and calling it silly numbers. But we can at least explore it a little bit more. So, the hottest, air quotes, fire you can kind of produce is, you get towards the 5,000 degrees Celsius, which at least is a good amount above the melting point of steel. So let's look at a acetylene flame, which burns like white blue hot, and is around the, 5,000 degree mark. This, to a small piece of steel, will kind of, in a few seconds, melt a little groove into it. So fairly quickly, but fairly small scale, but yes, in open air. That is reasonably impressive. But again, scale is the big deal here. This is happening to a gargantuan slab of metal all over at once. You simply cannot project a flame like this in such a wide area and have it retain its effectiveness. It's just not going to happen. I mean, unless Fatalis somehow can, but the thing is, note that this is a white-hot, blue, tealy, it is a searing flame. And Fatalis' flames are kind of the normal orangey, fiery fire, so there's already a disconnect there. And I will tell you now that for Fatalis' flames to look like the fire that they do, the classic fiery flamethrower flame breath, and also be hot enough to achieve what he is achieving is impossible. That is literally impossible, and it just cannot happen. And I know, it's a video game, alright? But again, I really need to convey this. Let's take this even higher, shall we? Let's go with, arc welding. This is where you use electrical current to, weld pieces of metal together. This can get up to 6,000, 7,000 degrees. That, is impressive, and yes, again, on a small scale, will essentially near instantly moltenify the metal and join it together. Of course, it pretty quickly solidifies again, because keeping metal melted is also really difficult, but this does it very efficiently and quickly on a small scale. But again, scale is the issue. There is large-scale arc furnaces that melt huge amounts of metal. But again, this is in a controlled environment, it is huge scale, and it is a big bucket of scrap metal being turned back into soup. And this one's only about 3,000 degrees. It's not as intense as a pinpoint arc welder blowtorchy type setup. So, what you're essentially getting at here is that in order for this to be achieved on the scale and speed that it is by Fatalis, his fire would have to be in the tens and tens and tens of thousands of degrees Celsius. It's at the point where the entire castle itself, the very stone and rock that it is made from, should be melting as well, just like the metal. The ambient air temperature would instantly, near instantly, roast alive and kill everyone in the vicinity. You behind your bits of metal, that makes no difference at all. Everyone waiting up in camp and all the wing drakes, they dead. They absolutely annihilated. The entire place should be getting turned into rivers of molten lava, apocalyptic landscaping death by Fatalis. Trade should just be a essentially heaping molten mountain solidified after his attack finished. That is what is going on here. Fatalis' fire to achieve this has to be comfortably, inordinately hotter than the surface of the sun. That is impressive to say the least, but it is also impossible. Maybe if he was breathing streams of Plasma, that can get up to millions of degrees, so, you know, that might be one way to go. But also, Fatalis himself is completely immune and resistant to his own flame that must be hotter than the surface of the sun at an incredibly low ball end to do what it's doing to this metal this quickly on this larger scale, which means he is made out of a substance that goes beyond anything in the known universe. Tungsten comes in at about 3,500 degrees Celsius, 2,000 above steel, and is about the upper echelons of a melting point that we are aware of that exists. So, even in that case, yeah, it's just going to be getting annihilated by Fatalis. Fatalis, by the way, who is somehow weak to fire! What? What? It's actually a little bit insane. As insane as the pools of water that don't evaporate during the fight. I hope this has somewhat put across just how silly Fatalis' flame is, and cemented why, well, maybe not for the reasons that were intended in his design, he is almost certainly the strongest monster, and why almost certainly him being able to produce fire that is apparently this hot on the scale that he does makes him a one-dragon demolition machine that can level civilizations. So, yeah, I guess bravo, Fatalis, for your mythical fire that looks like normal fire, but is a temperature that beggars belief. Congratulations.
I don't know what just happened, but I feel like I should be immensely proud of myself.
I hope you enjoyed this little look at, I guess, how it would actually work in the real world if something ridiculous that a Monster Hunter does was to happen in the real world. And let me know if you want more like this, I guess. In any case, like if you enjoyed this, subscribe for more, and know that I do want to do a video on, I would say, the 4 monsters that I think have a strong argument for actually being stronger than Fatalis. I know, after everything that I just said, but obviously everything that I just said doesn't come into play for a monster battle, because this is a very literal interpretation of a mechanic that's not actually Fatalis' power level, but it is funny to imagine that that's what it's implying it is. In any case, please consider supporting the future of the channel on Patreon down below, and until we meet again, a goodbye.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.